This is America on the Road, winner of the International Automotive Media Conference Gold Medal Award for Radio, and now in its 26th year on the air. Thanks for being with us as we bring you the latest automotive information from around the world. The North American Car, Truck, and Utility Vehicle of the Year awards have just been announced, and we'll have the details for you direct from the jury. I'm the vice president of that organization, by the way. And there's a new big dog in U.S. auto sales for the past year, and we'll tell you all about that. America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and DrivingToday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at MercuryInsurance.com. Well, hi, I am Jack Nerad, and with me is guest host Gino Effler. Gino has co-hosted with us before. He's Director of Corporate Communications at J.D. Power. Gino, thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it.
Jack, you're very welcome. It is always a thrill for me to be on America on the Road. And 26 years. Wow, this show has been around. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. I started the show when I was 3. I'm now 29. It's been great so far, and I'm expecting it to go several more years. Co-host Chris Teague is not with us this week. He's out ill. We wish him well. Hopefully he will be back with us again next week. But it's always great to have Gino on the show. He's so insightful. He's been around this industry for, well, at least 26 years, I imagine, something like that.
I have, yes.
Yeah, absolutely true. So great to have him on the show. This week we have a terrific guest for you as well. Our special guest is Nick Collins. He's Executive Director of Vehicle Programs for Jaguar Land Rover. He has a nice British accent too, but that isn't the highlight. The highlight will be the fact that he's going to give us some inside details on the all-new Range Rover just introduced. So we will have that special bit of information on Range Rover for you. In the road test segment, we'll take a long look at the 2022 Kia Soul. That's a vehicle that has been one of the biggest bargains on the market for the past decade. And the question is, does it still deserve that honor as a 2022 model year vehicle? Well, we'll sort that out, and I'm sure Gino will have some special insight on how consumers feel about Kia vehicles and maybe the Soul itself. You have that kind of insight, don't you, Gino?
Every now and then I do, Jack. I come to these things prepared. So, yeah, I'll have some insight for you.
Good. Well, we're counting on that. But before we do that, we're going to have the latest in automotive news from around the globe. So stay with us for that with Gino Effler. This is Jack Nerad with you. And thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with guest host Gino Effler. It's Jack Nerad with you for automotive news, and we've got tons of automotive news, including the North American Car, Truck, and Utility Vehicle of the Year award winners. They have just been announced in Detroit, and we have the inside skinny on these because I'm vice president of the North American Car of the Year jury, and I've served on the jury for a long time. And Gino, you're certainly an observer of North American Car of the Year for many, many years. Let me run.
I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am. And I'm very anxious to hear who these winners are. Who you 100 jurors. It's still 100 jurors, right?
Actually, it's 50. We've cut it in half.
Now. Okay.
Yeah, so we've cut it in half to 50 jurors. And I am one of them, as I say, and also the vice president of the organization. And let me run down the North American Car of the Year, Truck of the Year, and Utility of the Year award winners. I think I'm going to start with Utility Vehicle of the Year, and it is the 2022 Ford Bronco. An exciting vehicle, the revival of the Bronco name after many, many years of not being in the market. And they've really done one heck of a job with this vehicle. What's your take on the Ford Bronco, the new Ford Bronco, Gino?
I think, when you revive a name, an iconic name, regardless of the brand, it puts a lot of extra pressure on the current design team and the marketing team to make sure that vehicle gets up to the same, shall we say, image level that the old version had. And I think what we see in J.D. Power studies is that consumers were very satisfied with the Ford Bronco. In the appeal study, what owners liked about the car or about the vehicle, and it's it's pretty strong, very robust. I think it's gotten a lot of good media coverage. And from that standpoint, I think their biggest problem is they probably wish they could make more of them.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, there is a lot of the onus is really on the designer and the whole team putting together a vehicle that is taking an iconic name like Bronco on, and it really is an iconic name. It dates back to the '60s. A lot of interesting aura around Bronco, certainly, including a slow-speed chase once upon a time. But a lot revolving around that, and I think they've done one heck of a job. I think they really have.
Yep.
I voted strongly for Bronco in this category, and I just think it's kind of kicked butt.
When you mentioned Ford Bronco, maybe it's my age, but the first thing I think of is Parnelli Jones driving it in the Baja, 1000 in Baja Desert races. It goes back that far. It is an iconic model for the Ford Motor Company.
Right. When I joined this business, which is a long time ago now, I used to pick up Ford vehicles to test at Bill Strop & Son, and they're the ones who prepared those vehicles for that off-roading down in Baja, etc. So I have a soft spot in my heart for the Bronco, and I really think they've done one heck of a job on that vehicle. Well, let's go to the next vehicle on the list, and that is the North American Truck of the Year. Three really interesting contenders in this category, including the Rivian R1T from a startup manufacturer, and then the Hyundai Santa Cruz, which is kind of a trucklet, little truck. But the winner is, the North American Truck of the Year is the Ford Maverick.
Wow.
So, a compact truck. The revival of the small truck. What's your take on the Maverick? And another, very proud Ford name, but or maybe not so proud, but a well-worn Ford name. What's your take on that, Gina?
Yeah, I think, Jack, that this is a surprise. I obviously it was very impressive to the jurors. I think it's still a bit early to measure some consumer satisfaction with the vehicle, but those who have driven it early on, have been very positive about it. And I think that segment, the smaller truck, is something that a lot of people are looking for, and they think back to when all those small pickup trucks went away, and I think they were all asking why'd all those small pickup trucks go away? 30, 40 years ago. It's like, we like those things. They're nice. And I think this Maverick is a solid machine, but I don't think it came into this competition as the favorite in the pickup truck category. Usually you think bigger and stronger and more towing capacity kind of drives the award to a larger truck. But kudos to Ford on their execution of the Maverick. From the design, the engineering, and obviously the price point. I'm sure a lot of those things came into play when the judges picked it.
Absolutely, price point I think was a big thing, and of course the fact that at its low price point, in fact I think it starts under $20,000. And I think they're going to hold that price for a while. It has a hybrid powertrain, which is kind of an amazing value in and of itself. I think you can get a very well-equipped Ford Maverick for $23,000. And though it's not for everybody, as you say, some people like a larger truck, I think what Ford has done is they built a real good small truck. And to your point, a lot of people have been hankering for that for quite some time now.
Yeah, the only downside with Maverick buyers, Jack, is if they own a Maverick, they can't go to their friends and say, hey, you've got that big pickup truck. Can you help me move this weekend? Because those friends will say, well, hey, pal, you got your own pickup truck now. Go do it yourself.
But having that open bed is very versatile. I mean, I have had the Maverick around the house. I tested it for a week. I also tested the Hyundai Santa Cruz, which also has a small pickup truck bed. And they're very, very useful vehicles in a lot of ways. You can stick stuff in a pickup truck bed, obviously, that you can't shoehorn into an SUV. And I think that works out quite well.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Let's dive into North American Car of the Year. Maybe the red letter among these, although so many sport utility vehicles are sold these days, so you could make the case that the sport utility vehicle of the year is the most important pick here. But the car of the year is a great vehicle with a great heritage, and it's the Honda Civic. All new for 2022, completely redone, and it is just an unbelievable value. I think it's a terrific vehicle, and you certainly have had a lot of experience with Honda Civics through the years, and American consumers certainly have. But tell us a bit about your take on that, Gino.
I think it's a great choice. The Civic was iconic, or has been iconic for decades. The small little sedan with an engine that seemed to last forever, and when fuel economy was paramount in people's minds as a determining factor in buying a car, the Honda Civic was right up there. Very fuel efficient, and they rode that way for a long, long time. Early on, I don't think anybody could say Honda Civics were pretty, stylish. They weren't ugly, but they were, they were kind of designed for the times that they were in, and just incredibly reliable. And they carried that on. This Civic, I think, is one of the most beautiful looking Honda Civics I've ever seen. The styling just knocked me out, and it still is about, with Honda, it's all about the powertrain, which is obviously a big plus. But they've added to the powertrain now, obviously, with the styling. But it's Honda Motor Company. They're always focused on the motor. It's great performance. The fuel economy still very strong. Pricing still very strong. It's always there. It's always dependable. I'd say they're the Mariano Rivera of the auto industry.
Right. Well, before we get out of the segment, I want to at least mention a piece that we alluded to in the first segment, and it is about Toyota Motor Corporation for the first time overtaking General Motors as the U.S.'s top-selling car company in annual sales. Toyota was less struck by the chip shortage than others, and certainly than GM, so that had something to do with it. Do you think this is a big shift, or do you think this is maybe a one-year kind of thing that was driven by the chip shortage?
I think, Jack, in many cases, it was driven by the chip shortage. It was the quietest big news of the end of the year. It didn't get a lot of attention, but hey, for the first time in 100+ years, GM wasn't the sales leader in the U.S. That's big news. Will it continue in 2022? That depends a lot on how GM can handle production.
Yeah, well, that's a good sum up, I think. And when we come back, we will be taking a look at the 2022 Kia Soul. We'll also get Gino's insight into the whole car industry, what's going on, what happened last year, and what's going on next year. So stay with us for that with Gino Effler. This is Jack Nerad with you, and join us right after the break for more of America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with guest host Gino Effler. Jack Nerad back with you for Road Test Time, and we love Road Test Time. We love road testing vehicles and telling you about them. What a fun job. We're lucky to have it. Of course, co-host Chris Teague is not with us. He's out ill this week, but he will be back next week. I hope he's not being snowed in Maine, where I think the weather is horrible. Much better in my end of the country, and where I and Gino Effler are residing these days. But let's talk a bit about the Kia Soul. Certainly, Gino, this is a vehicle that has kind of quietly gathered a reputation as one of the most dependable vehicles of its type for a long, long time now. It's been on the market for more than a decade. It sells well. Kia sold more than 75,000 Soul hatchbacks in 2021, so American consumers are grasping the fact that it's a good vehicle. What's your overall take on what Kia has been able to accomplish with Soul?
I think it's very, very positive. When Kia launched, they came into this market as kind of a quirky alternate to a Honda or Toyota or a Nissan. And this particular model, this little hatchback just kind of fulfilled that quirkiness. It's a very interesting little styling. You see one, you know exactly what it is. You don't get it confused with something from another brand. But the fact that this car, this little compact hatchback, I guess, has pricing that starts under $20,000. That's a rarity these days in the auto shopping world. And I think they found a niche. There's still a lot of people that want a car that they can afford and that has some sort of character and styling to it, and this fits the bill.
I absolutely agree with you there. And of course, the Soul, it's interesting. You don't know exactly how to describe it because it's kind of part crossover SUV and part hatchback, and not exactly like either one, right? I mean, it doesn't have all wheel drive, so it isn't a typical crossover SUV. It doesn't pretend to have all wheel drive capabilities, but at the same time, it's got a lot of interior space for something that's fairly short in terms of overall length. It's 165 inches long, which is not very long at all. Let me tell you, it's shorter than say a Nissan Kicks, for example. But it has a lot of interior space, and I think you notice that the minute you get inside a Soul, you realize how much space this thing offers. As you mentioned, it has a base price well under 20 grand, and it's pretty well finished for something that is that inexpensive. It has useful items like a tilt telescoping steering wheel, outside temperature display. Those things are standard across the board. The adjustable driver's seat is manually adjustable in the base configuration, but you can get power operated adjustable driver's seat. And it has a 60-40 split seat back, so you can accept odd size cargo. They've offered various powertrains with the Soul, but for 2022, there are only two powertrains. One is a 147 horsepower 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It has a continuously variable automatic transmission as the only transmission available. And then there is the Soul Turbo with 201 horsepower from a turbocharged 1.6-liter 4-cylinder, and it has a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic. So the vehicle has two different characters, really largely dependent upon the engine you choose.
It sure does. And it's like you're not going to be taking this car out to the track anytime soon and do any time trialing or anything like that. But it has some get up and go to it, and for its size, it's quite appropriate. I've not talked to a Kia Soul owner yet who has been disappointed with their purchase. Now, might there be out there in America? Yes, but none that I've met. So I think it's a very solid vehicle. This new version, the 2022, I think is going to be another winner for Kia.
Absolutely. I mean, they have largely stayed with the same formula from the beginning. They've added a little horsepower. I think the original was down in horsepower from the 147 horsepower. But otherwise, things are very much the same. And as you say, even with the less powerful engine, the Soul can more than get out of its own way. With the turbocharged engine, it's kind of a blast to drive. Like you're not going to challenge any Porsches with it, but you're going to have fun with it. And a lot of usefulness in this vehicle too. I think it's a great urban vehicle. With the rear seat back folded, it offers a huge amount of cargo space, 62.1 cubic feet. There's 24.2 cubic feet with the second row bench seat in use of cargo space. So that's like the cargo space of two trunks in the typical sedan, something like that. More space than in the Hyundai Kona and the Toyota CHR, which are competitors. So very versatile vehicle. And I think one of the strong suits on the Kia Soul 2 is the infotainment system. And I think that's something you could probably comment on because I know that's a big sticking point for many, many consumers is the infotainment systems. But I think very intuitive in the Kia Soul, and that wins it some kudos, doesn't it?
It does. I'm not going to get into the specifics, Jack, but I know that the infotainment system is critical to the overall customer satisfaction of every vehicle owner out there. We see that in JD Power studies all the time. And when you look at the infotainment system, not only this vehicle but other Kias, the satisfaction levels are pretty strong. And that's why we've seen Kia do extremely well in JD Power initial quality study results. That's the measurement of quality study and quality in the first 90 days of ownership, and then also in the vehicle dependability studies that we do that measures owner satisfaction over the first 3 years of ownership. So, Kia has won these studies in recent years. They've finished way up there. In the other years, they're not winning right now. And it's a far cry from where they were, 25 to plus years ago when they launched in the U.S., when they were at the bottom of all the J.D. Power studies. So this brand has really focused on the quality and making things work the way they're supposed to work and fulfilling the expectations of customers. And the infotainment system is an example of that.
Absolutely true. Another example of that are the safety and driver aids that are available. The lowest version, the LX version, makes them optional, but there are many standard safety features across the other trim levels, including forward collision avoidance assist, lane keeping assist, driver attention warning, blind spot collision warning, lane change assist, and rear cross traffic collision avoidance assist. So a lot of good stuff on the safety front. Fuel economy, quite good, very competitive with others in its class. Wide variety of trim levels and kind of interesting trim levels. And you can get cool stuff like a Harman Kardon audio system in the Soul Turbo, for example, and still not pay more than about $27,000, $28,000, $29,000. Certainly not over $30,000. So I just think there's a ton of value in the Kia Soul across the board. Some of the best values, I think, are the lowest priced among them because they still have that 147 horsepower engine and a lot of good stuff inside. But and then if you want to go to the turbo and have 201 horsepower at your beck and call and a shift-it-yourself transmission, you can do that for less than $28,000. So I think you probably agree with me, Gino, that there's a lot of value here in the Kia Soul.
There sure is. And, there's a lot of people out there looking for value when it comes to buying a new car. Sometimes they can't necessarily find a lot of new cars, but they definitely are looking for value. And this fulfills that checkbox.
Well, they are going out the door quickly. As I was putting together the review today, I was checking to see local inventory availability, and they're not all that available, but check them out and call your Kia dealer and see what you can do. Well, I want to tap into your expertise, Gino, on what happened in 2021. It was kind of a year of two different kind of sales demeanors, I guess you would say. I mean, we had strong sales, and then suddenly, because of inventory issues, sales went off the cliff for a little bit. But tell us a bit about your insight on all of that.
Well, it was an interesting year, probably one unlike we've ever seen in the car industry before. Here we are, the pandemic, the COVID-19 has had such an effect on production from the supply chain of parts and the production of vehicles that production volume was way down, comparatively speaking, to previous years. But there still was a demand for new vehicles. Just because there was fewer cars available didn't mean that consumers weren't out shopping. Well, the sales overall in 2021 were disappointing per se in terms of previous years, but almost all the cars that were manufactured were being sold, at a percentage rate that was unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime. I mean, it's staggering. It's hard for people to necessarily get the exact vehicle they want, so sometimes they have to compromise a bit more. But the desire to buy new cars is still there. It's still very strong, Jack.
Absolutely, and we're going to see what unfolds this year. Hopefully, production can catch up with demand, and we can lessen those prices a little bit because it has been beating up the consumer a bit. Well, when we come back, we are going to have our interview with Nick Collins, who is the head of product for Jaguar Land Rover. He will be talking more than a bit about actually, the all-new Range Rover. We see one of those every decade or so it's exciting stuff. So stay with us for our interview with Nick Collins. He is Executive Director of Vehicle Programs for Jaguar Land Rover, and we'll have that right after the break. With Gino Effler, this is Jack Nerad, and we're so glad you're with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. Jack Nerad with you. We are at the Los Angeles Auto Show, and we are the guests of Jaguar Land Rover right now. Nick Collins is with us. Thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it. Talking about product and the new Land Rover, which you're here to talk about. You've jetted in from UK to do that. Tell us what you've got to tell us.
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having us. Great pleasure to be with you. And we are here in Los Angeles for the American reveal of the all-new Range Rover. And this is, an iconic vehicle for us. It is our flagship. It's the 5th generation of the car, now with 50 years of history, and it's a once-in-a-decade opportunity to launch an all-new Range Rover.
What most excites you about that opportunity? Is it the history that goes with it, or what is it that is exciting about that?
I think the history is one element of it. Is an iconic car that people love all around the world. But it's always, when you're doing it once in a decade, it's taking it to an all-new level, and this car is from the ground up, brand new. And we're announcing some really exciting elements with this car, as well as a 7-seat version for the first time ever, really inspired by the US market. But maybe personally, the thing I'm really excited about that we've said publicly now, that from 2024 we'll have an all-electric version of the Range Rover. And when you think of it as the ultimate luxury SUV, what's more luxurious than whisper quiet progression in a Range Rover?
Absolutely. The market has obviously come to you in a lot of ways, right? And Range Rover set the tone for the luxury SUV decades before it had any competition. Truly a landmark vehicle. And so how do you follow that up? I mean, you've hinted at it, but give us a bit more.
Well, the first thing is you don't try to reinvent it every time, and we very much listen to our customers, and we've got an incredibly loyal customer base at Range Rover, and what they say to us is don't change it, just make it better. So we're always thinking about how to make a Range Rover a better Range Rover. We're not reinventing it to be something different. It's got a lineage, it's got a history, and we're just trying to take it to the next level of relevance for the modern world. With this new car, we talk about its breathtaking modernity, and that's very much a phrase that Jerry McGovern, our Chief Creative Officer, uses to describe the design of the car. But actually, its fundamental technology is breathtaking, its modernity as well, and even its manufacturing technology to bring that precision of design to life is also quite breathtaking in its modernity.
Talk a bit about the engineering. How does that express itself, the modernity?
Yeah, well, in many, many different ways, and this car is from the ground completely new. So we've got an all-new architecture. It's predominantly aluminium, but we use ultra and high-strength steels in various places around the car to make it really, really stiff. And some variants of this car are 50% stiffer than the outgoing car. That allows, that stiffness of structure then allows you to really isolate the occupants of the car from any noise and vibration outside on the road. So it's incredibly quiet, and we get that right from the start before we layer in new technology on top of it. One of the new bits of new technology we've put in for that refinement is noise cancellation technology. So we've got little headphones mounted in the speakers, in the headrests, little speakers in the headrests in both row 1 and row 2, and we've got little microphones in each of the 4 corners near the wheels, and then we create the anti-phase of the noise. And that just takes a very, very quiet cabin to an all-new level of luxuriousness. We talked about the 7-seat, we talked about the electric version coming. We're launching the car with an extended range plug-in hybrid. So we've got a 38 kilowatt hour battery underneath the car. It's packaged underneath the car, so there's no compromise to the luggage space or to the passenger space. And that gets us about 62 miles of EV-only driving. And then that's mated to a 6-cylinder petrol engine at the front. So when you do need the combined power, it's incredible, incredible refinement. And then for those who love it, particularly here in the US, we've got a new 4.4 litre V8 gasoline engine in the car as well.
What you've always been able to do with Range Rover, and maybe you can at least tell us, hint at the magic secret to do that, is unbelievable off-road capability, uncompromised, and at the same time, great on-road ride, quiet, and luxury. It's an incredible combination that it's hard to match. Talk a bit about that, would you?
Yeah, and so the off-road capability is part of our brand, and we're never going to walk away from that. And our customers want that. Do they use it every day? No. Do they know they can use it when they need to? Yes. And we've taken this car to a new level, both on-road and off-road. And a lot of the technologies that work off-road work very well on-road now, and vice versa. So we've got 4-corner air suspension on the car. We've now got twin valve damping on the car, so we can independently tune bump and rebound on the car, so we can get more precision into that. We can raise the car 4 stages of elevation with the air suspension, so for that off-road experience. We've got a new Wade mode on top of our existing off-road programs, and that's quite cool. It locks the drive line, it raises the car to its highest height, and it closes all the vents in the car to stop any water coming into the vehicle as well. And then maybe the newest piece of technology, or the 2 newest pieces of technology, which are really quite cool. We've got an electronic anti-roll control system that can generate up to 1,400 Newton meters of torque, one on each axle, to keep the car very, very flat in corners. But we've also introduced rear-wheel steer on the car for the first time. So we've got 7 degrees of articulation, of angle articulation on the rear axle.
7 degrees?
7 degrees.
Yeah.
So when you turn the steering wheel in a slow speed maneuver, a parking lot maneuver, the wheels at the rear will go in the opposite direction to the front, and that gives it a turning circle of a compact sedan. I mean, it's literally like somebody shrunk the car. When you're out on the highway, those wheels are going to move in phase to the front wheels, and that makes lane changes more intuitive, more progressive, and that actually gives you more comfort. But then the really neat bit, let me put you in an off-road situation and you're in some quite deep ruts. That angle from the rear axle as well as the front will actually allow you to steer out of the ruts more intuitively and easier than you can just with front wheel steering.
What are the pieces of technology that you're most excited about in the newest version of the Range Rover?
Well, that's quite a big question because there's so much technology into it. Let me go to 2 or 3 different areas. I think the fundamental refinement, because Range Rover is a luxury car, and we're very, very confident about how quiet this car is. Then we talk about the propulsion technology, and I'm really excited about the plug-in hybrid, and I'm also excited about the EV that's coming, because we're on that progression now as an industry. But then we've got an all-new level of connectivity in this car as well, so it's a Range Rover for the modern world. And that manifests itself in a couple of places. We've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but we've also integrated Amazon Alexa. And you don't need to bring your device into the car for that, you just need to log into your Amazon account on the car, and you can use it wherever you want. You can control the car with it, but you can also turn your lights off at home with your Alexa connected devices back in your house. And then in our commitment to quality and reliability as we go forward, we've got 70 of the control modules in the car that we can now update over the air. And that covers all of the major control systems, the navigation systems, the infotainment systems. And we can send those software updates to the car, we can offer our customers new features as we develop them, and we can continuously improve the product for them through their ownership experience.
Right. This product, the Range Rover, is sold in probably over 100 countries across the world. I think I live in a town that is your number one market. I live in the South Bay of right here near Los Angeles. I can't believe the number of Range Rovers in my town. Would that I could afford one the way some of my compatriots do. How do you look at that? How do you look at a vehicle of the capability of a Range Rover being essentially used just to shuttle kids back and forth to preschool? Run that through your head a little bit, and I'm curious as to your take.
Well, I'd take them on many different levels, actually. So you're absolutely right, here in Los Angeles, it's incredible the number of Range Rovers. But what's actually struck me this week driving around is all the generations of the Range Rovers. So when we talk about sustainability, it's not just about the first life of the car, and actually it's been wonderful to see multiple generations of Range Rovers around the city. So people really relate to this product for the longevity of it. The car is an incredible off-road car, but it's also an incredible on-road car, as we've discussed. And for a lot of people, it's their sanctuary, it's the place where they feel safe. So why do they transport their children in it, their grandchildren in it? It's because they feel it's a safe place to be, and it's a refined place to be. So we have that place in the world, we have a responsibility to it, but that's also why we're on this transition towards EV. This is the Range Rover electric that we're going to launch in 2024 will be the first of 6 Land Rovers that will be all electric. By the end of the decade, we'll have an electric version of every Land Rover that we make, and by 2036, as a total company, we'll be zero emissions. So we're on that sustainable journey, but sustainability has many levels, and I love seeing the generations of this car on the road and it being passed through those generations. We have incredibly loyal customers with Range Rover. We have a lot of repeat business. And we have that because the car gets under your skin, and it gets under your skin for a long time.
Right. What does electrification open up to you that you wouldn't have otherwise from an engineering point of view and capability point of view?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because a lot of people say, well, it's not going to be very good off-road. Actually, it's outstanding off-road because you've got that instantaneous torque at low revs. So you've got much more precision. You can control the four wheels independently. You've got huge torque from zero movement effectively. And then on-road, you've got the ultimate in quietness, complete whisper quietness. And for a Range Rover, that's just...
Then you have to engineer against that, right? So everything else is quiet because there's no engine sound.
Yeah, it's going to open up different discussions, noises that perhaps you've not heard before that are masked by, by road noise or by engine noise suddenly become very prevalent in EV, and we'll continuously refine that as we go forwards as well.
Interestingly, I guess, and certainly you're known for your interiors, right? And very traditional interiors, traditional in a beautiful, rich, well-tailored way. How do you evolve that?
Well, we're evolving on a number of levels. So we talk about reductive design. We're actually very reductive on the inside of the car as well. So we're simplifying a lot of what we do, making it less confusing for the owner to use, less complicated, less distracting, frankly. Right. So we evolve it on that level, but in a very classical, tailored way, as you said. And then we're also very committed to our materiality strategy. So it's not all about leather. We've got an incredible range of luxurious textiles and leather alternatives that we're bringing because we believe luxurious materials can be manifested themselves in many different ways. So we're really pushing material choice and material diversity in there as well.
Are you talking about natural materials like wool, say, or is that kind of upholstery material?
Yeah, we're using textiles. And if you think about the high-end furniture market now, it's not so much leather furniture, it's very much high-end textiles. And we're pioneering that, bringing it into the automotive industry as well.
What should our listeners know about the new Range Rover when they think about Range Rover?
I think they should think it is truly a Range Rover. We think of it as the ultimate luxury SUV, and this generation is just taking the prior generation to an all-new level. But they should really see that iconic design evolve, and they should really understand that this is ground-up, breathtakingly modern technology underneath the car as well. And this is taking what is an already great car to an even greater level.
Yeah, and I think adding technology, but making it simple and easy to use and transparent is the way to go. It strikes me that's what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. You can't make it confusing. People get into a Range Rover and breathe out a sigh of relief that they've got into their sort of quiet sanctuary of a place. They don't want to be confused. They don't want to be harassed. They don't want to be, figuring out how to use it. They want to breathe out. And we want them to breathe out. We want them to enjoy a luxury experience.
Well, Nick Collins of Jaguar Land Rover, thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate you sharing all this insight about the all-new Range Rover.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. It is our final segment for this week with guest host Gino Effler. We thank him so much for being with us. We really do appreciate having him with us. We're going to tap into his knowledge right now as the Director of Corporate Communications for J.D. Power. Here's our question from Leon. He's in Davenport, Iowa, and this is what Leon asks. He says, "It seems like trucks and SUVs are all I see people buy these days. How big is that trend, and do you ever see it ending at some point?" Well, what's your take on that, Gino?
Great question. The answer is right now, trucks and SUVs account for about 80% of new vehicle retail sales, and it's never been that high. Only a few years ago, it was just over 50% and slightly climbed above 60. It just keeps climbing. Where it's going to end, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to come down very much unless something very dramatic happens in the industry from a product standpoint. I just see that people are very happy with SUVs and trucks. Gas is still, I won't say affordable, but it's not unaffordable quite yet. And this 80% figure, while tough or at times unbelievable, I don't think it's going to vary from that number very far.
Yeah, I really think what we have seen, and nobody really reports on it this way, but I think the new car is an SUV. The new crossover is what a car is for most people. It's just the conventional vehicle, and a sedan or a coupe or something like that is a specialty car these days. It's not mainstream. The mainstream are all these crossovers, and there's good reason for that. They're easy to get in and out of. You can see out of them really well. They're great for families, but they're great for individuals as well. They're very versatile. There's just a lot of reasons why crossovers are a better purchase than a sedan or coupe. And I think that also holds true for trucks, especially now that we have 5-passenger pickup trucks as the norm.
Very true, Jack. I have to agree with that.
So a ton of reasons why we have that. We want to thank Gino Effler for sharing his insight as the J.D. Power expert with us. We really appreciate him joining us. Thanks so much for being with us, Gino.
Jack, my pleasure as always. Look forward to my next visit.
I look forward to it too. We always have fun chatting with each other. We've known each other for a long time, and we still like each other, or I like you, and apparently you like me well enough to be on the show, so I appreciate that. And we look forward to Chris Teague returning with us again next week. So look for that. He remains 6 feet tall. So that's it for this edition of America on the Road with Gino Effler. This is Jack Nerad saying thanks so much for being with us. And join us again next time for another edition of America on the Road. America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and DrivingToday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at mercuryinsurance.com. And if you're looking for some automotive information to buy a new car or used car, or just care about cars, go to drivingtoday.com. It's drivingtoday.com with a world of automotive information every day. DrivingToday.com, the official website of America on the Road.